and welcome to a Create Today video hosted by Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. I'm designer Jen Gallacher, and today we're using the Stitched collection designed by Amy Tangerine for American Crafts. This particular collection focuses a lot on stitching, and Amy Tangerine has a fashion design background, and so she brings a lot of stitching elements into it. This particular kit here is called the Oxford kit and includes twine, a paper piercer, a pad into which you can poke, as well as templates for stitching. And we're going to use this later in our project so I can show you how to hand stitch on cards. There are stamps that go with this as well that you could stamp and then stitch, or simply stamp and design. This is a fun overlay. It's a sticker roll, and you can see that it's perforated, and it's also got backing so that you can pull it out and use it as a sticker. These are some of the designs in it. These are the bits. They're little chipboard shapes, and it has a light wood grain finish on the back. Has a lot of handmade looking elements. The die cut set includes items that look as if they were hand stitched, as well as a pair of scissors and some words. The enamel dots are broad, and they also have open bits so you can put things behind them. These are a canvas fabric sticker set. These are the puffy stickers. These are the bits. There's 49 different pieces and elements in here. Lots of trending elements like foxes, as well as handmade elements like the scissors. Now, these particular wood frames have elements that could be stitched. If you see the one with the little dot here on the front, you can run embroidery thread through here and stitch it. So Amy thought a lot about how you can incorporate stitching throughout this collection. These chipboard letter phrases, thickers in both a craft and a black foam, a remark sticker sheet set, and it has all these different colors. And then here are the 12 by 12 pattern papers in this collection. There are soft watercolor elements, cards that you can cut out. There's also some craft items, and you'll notice that there are dashed lines that you could add stitching by adding X's to these boxes. You could cross stitch here at the top. She's thought a lot about how and where you can add stitching. And a lot of the papers are very simple and can be used in multiple different ways. This is the months of the year. Hearts with a wood tree on the back. Gray hearts. Journaling cards. These are squares. These are great for Instagram type albums. Triangles. A wood grain craft. Hearts. Again, you could cross stitch some of the hearts in this paper. And then this is a phrase paper. Again, you could stitch through the dash lines or leave them as is. Let's go ahead and use the Stitch collection designed by Amy Tangerine for American Crafts to create a card set. So before we get started on the first card, I wanted to show you the stitching kit that comes with this collection. So again, there is a template, and it has holes in it for piercing. There is a paper piercing tool, and it's not super sharp, but it's sharp enough to poke through the paper that you're going to use. And then there's 3 different colors of embroidery floss: black, gray, and a golden brown. And each particular embroidery floss comes with its own individual sewing ribbon. And I suggest that you store these together so you don't lose them. But let me show you the basic concept. The pad underneath is thick enough that you can pierce through it. You could also use a mouse pad. And then you just need whatever paper you use. Today I am just going to use this piece of cardstock. And the first thing I want to do is I want to show you how you can pierce. So you want to place the template wherever on the paper you want to stitch, and then you simply poke the holes through the template. And you can also use your own shapes if you want. What you would do is you could sketch with pencil a shape and then start poking holes with the paper piercing tool. Just make sure that they are equal distance apart. So then when you've pierced it, this is how it looks, and you can see it creates these raised bumps on the other side. To use the thread, you will need to unravel it however long you want. And then typically when I'm sewing, I only like to use 3 of the threads. Now, embroidery floss typically has 6 threads that are twisted together to create a nice thick thread, and you can just separate them. And then to thread them onto the needle, I usually lick one end. And what that does is it just creates kind of a tight weave of the 2, or rather 3 pieces of thread. You can also twist it and thread it onto your needle. Once you've threaded it onto your needle, you're going to want to create a knot in one end. When stitching through paper, you're going to come up through the bottom. So pick any hole. Then to stitch, you have a couple of options. Move from one hole to the next, moving up and down with the needle. You can skip between holes, such as this. Which creates a gap between the 2 stitching. Or you can do what's called a back stitch. If you've gone down through this hole, you're going to come up through the next hole, and then you're going to come back down through the first hole. This is called back stitching. This is the stitch you want to use if you want a solid stitch all around. And depending on the pattern you want, you continue all the way around and then come down through the first original hole and knot it again on the back. It's very much like hand stitching. The nice thing about stitching on paper is that because it is stiff, it's quite easy to stitch through. So let's go ahead and make a card using some of these embellishments and stitching tools by Amy Tangerine. To create this card, I've started with the craft cardstock that has the white stitching words in it. Then I use the paper piercer to poke through the word love. I'm going to hand stitch it and then show you what it looks like. This is a great way to create a subtle background. Amy has already done the work for you. You simply need to poke through the holes indicated on this craft paper. So you can see here how after poking the holes, I've stitched through the letters. It's a very subtle tone-on-tone effect, but it'll be a fun element on the card. Let's go ahead and make the rest of the card. I'm going to mount the craft cardstock base onto a black piece of cardstock that has been folded in half. We're leaving an edge around the black cardstock. To the card, I'm going to add this Always on My Mind die cut, which comes from the ephemera pack. And I'm also going to mount this on another piece of black cardstock. After I have mounted them on top of one another, I'll place them in the center of the card. Above the Always card, I'm going to add the squirrel die cut. Again, this is from the ephemera pack. We're going to cover up part of the word love. On the bottom part of the squirrel, I'm going to take one of these puffy letter stickers. It says XOXO. So we're creating a triangle of different words. To the bottom of the card, I have cut some of the journaling cards paper. I strategically cut it at a place where I knew I wouldn't use that particular journaling card because I wanted to use these fun triangles on the back side. We can adhere this to the bottom of the card. From the same die cut ephemera pack as the squirrel come these 3 fun acorns. And something fun that you can do with elements is to hang them on your page. To do this, poke a hole far enough from the top of the stem of the acorn that when you add thread, it won't rip through the thread. Then, gently remove the card and poke 3 holes in the bottom of the card. Then, using the needle and thread, you're going to attach the acorns to the card by sewing them to the card. Let me show you what I mean. To start with, take the thread with a knot on one end. Poke the needle through the hole you've already pre-poked until the knot comes to the top of the acorn. Then come up through the bottom of the holes that you've poked on the black card. determine how far you want the acorn to hang onto the card. You may need to place it on the card to get a feel for where it should hang. I'm going to hang them in 3 different lengths. Once you have done this, add a knot to the top hole so that it holds the acorn in place, and then repeat it for the 3 acorns. Here you can see how each of the threads holds one of the acorns. Before placing this on the card, we're going to add a border strip. Each of the American Crafts pattern papers has an informational strip across the bottom. On the back side of that strip is typically a color or pattern. You can trim these strips off when creating a 12 by 12 layout, then save the strips and use them later. We're going to use this green one from one of the Amy Tangerine papers, and we'll mount it across the top of these triangle border. Then let's add a little bit more adhesive back to the back of our rectangle. And you can see how each of the acorns dangles. Now, if you want to hold the acorns in place, simply take a glue dot and pull the acorns taut. This will help them hold in place. Or you could leave them to dangle. That's a style question you'll have to answer for yourself. But by adding stitching to a card, it gives it a beautiful handmade feel. Let's go ahead and make another card that features the stitched collection from Amy Tangerine. For the second card, the foundation for the card will be a 3x4 journaling card cut off the craft cardstock sheet that includes 3x4 and 4x6 journaling cards. Now, one thing that you can do with the stitched collection is if you're not in the mood to stitch, but you do have some of the embroidery thread that you want to use up, one fun thing you can do is just simply wrap it around much like you would any other kind of twine. So you can stretch these supplies to fit whatever item you want or need on your layouts. So just cut off enough that we can tie it into a knot. Make sure you have good sharp scissors. We'll tie it into a knot, and then depending on how much layering you do on your card, you can either leave the knot or bow on the top side of the card, or you can pull it so it's on the back side of the card. So wait and see where your layering takes place, and then you can either move it or leave it as is. Right now I'm going to pull this knot over to the side, and you do that just by pulling things. And you'll notice that when I do this, they're not even. I don't like the look of evenly placed thread. That is a design concept that I like. You might like them more straight on. Once you get it the way you like, go ahead and attach it to your card front. Again, I'm using black cardstock as the card base. Then from the stickers, these pull-out stickers, they're called overlays. I have one that is a tag that says do, and you just peel off the sticker backing, and they're very thin stickers. And I want to get an idea of placement, and I'm going to be using this acorn card. So I want to make sure that my tag is placed where I want. And then from there, I can use glue dots, or I can use dot runner adhesive if it's strong enough, and you can add the main part, which is one of these wood grain chipboard cards. And you'll see that I'm covering the twine in the background. Now I have one little acorn left from the first card, and you'll notice that the same pattern occurs on this chipboard wood grain card. So something fun you can do is use a pop dot and place something that's similar. A lot of companies will do ephemera packs that are similar to stickers, but you can layer them. And then a pop dot makes it stand out a little bit. I'm going to add one of the puffy sticker buttons in a russet red color. And then one of the canvas stickers says amazing things will happen. And we're going to stick that just behind. And we're going to cover up one of the acorns, and that's okay. It to be straight on. So let's get the placement right. Then we can add that button back where we need it. Now to this particular card, I thought it needed a little something, so I'm going to add some craft colored photo corners, and I will do that to the first card as well to give it some cohesion and make them look similar. But I like that it just adds an additional layer to the card. So you can see that by using the stitched collection, you have so many options for adding thread and stitching to your projects, whether you poke holes through an image that Amy Tangerine has on her pattern paper, or you do it through one of the wood elements, or whether you use the actual stitching tools and create your own shapes. Their ideas are endless. Be sure to subscribe to the Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine YouTube channel so you don't miss out on these Create Today videos, including cards and scrapbook layout videos.